Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. I'm Anthony Giuliano, and our guest this week is Mark Davis. Mark, how you doing?
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I usually see you out on the trails, so it's unusual to see you when you're not in walking or running clothes.
You didn't recognize me in my suit.
That's right.
You see my black tights.
and you just got back from a trip to Nashville, correct?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that. What were you doing in Nashville, and how'd you spend your time?
Well, my oldest, he lives down there with his girlfriend, and my wife actually had a conference, so I played tag along and carried her bags and all that good stuff. But also my son got into golf late in his, say, freshman year or sophomore year of college, and he scheduled 36 holes for me one day, so we were kind of dragging that night.
Okay, yeah.
We went to bed at 10 o'clock in Nashville, so that's
like the middle of the day for Nashville. Yeah. So what are some? I know you go to Nashville pretty frequently. What are some of your favorite spots there?
We like to go to Old Red.
Okay.
On the corner there, Acme.
Okay.
Which we have an Acme here, but I noticed it's kind of. I don't know if I drove by it last night, and it said it's closed permanently. So unfortunately.
Yeah.
So Acme in Nashville in the corner. It's a good Broadway spot. You can see the whole Broadway.
Yeah.
Old Red. And from being there so often with Ian and his girlfriend, we found a lot of nice spots off Broadway.
Yeah.
So he lives 25 minutes from downtown, so there's obviously plenty to do down there, and a lot of good golf and activities.
Yeah. Well, speaking of golf, we're going to talk a little bit about your career path. And I'd like you to start at whatever the beginning is for you, but you actually made a pretty big transition from being a golf pro into the sales world. But let's start a little bit before that. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what you were thinking about in terms of career, and what you ended up doing.
Sure. I actually grew up at Pine Valley Country Club.
Okay.
So my dad was a member there in the 70s while he worked at Indiana Bank. So golf's been around I've been around golf my whole life, and just from being at the club every day, even as a kid, washing carts and picking the range and working at the pro shop, I decided to pursue a career in the golf business, which entails once you want to decide you want to get into the business, it's not that easy. You have to pass a couple of business schools, a playing ability test, where I believe when I did it, you had to shoot 2 rounds of 75. I'm not sure if I could do that these days. And then interview in front of the board of the Indiana PGA. So a lot of steps to becoming a pro, which a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
Also, they think that we play golf every day, which isn't true.
Yeah.
And in the business, and you can talk to a lot of golf pros, and it's quite a bit of hours.
Yeah.
Open sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
In the summertime.
Yeah. So you're working while everyone else is playing.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was in the business for 15 years, and in the 80s, it was booming. The tee sheet was full, like some 7 a.m. until 1 p.m., but it declined like a lot of other sports have, with family and your kids doing this, your kids doing that. A lot of people don't have time to spend 5 hours out there on a Saturday or Sunday.
Sure.
So from the golf business, I went into sales, and once I got hired by the Journal-Gazette, that was my first job out of the golf business. I'm like, what do I do with all my time? I'm home.
Yeah.
What do I do on the weekends? So it was a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
So I was at the Journal-Gazette for a couple of years, and then was recruited by KPC Media.
Okay.
Where I spent, I think, six years in sales.
All right. So what were you doing for Fort Wayne newspapers? What did that job entail? Sales, but what was the charge?
I was hired as a district manager.
Okay.
So which was the region.
Yep.
So compared to a city manager, the region is all the way up to Syracuse,
Okay.
Kendallville, Columbia City. I had that territory as the region district manager. So I had 25 to maybe 30 carriers under me.
Okay.
Where with the journal, you have to be out that middle of the night,
Yeah.
making sure the papers are delivered and everything's on time. The number one problem a lot of district managers have are carriers not showing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was doing that position, my dad said, "You should write a book," because every morning I would come home and email him and say, "This is what happened." So Joe called me from Michigan at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, our biggest delivery day of the whole week. I'm not going to make it, but I could hear music on his phone, so I must have been in the bar somewhere.
Yeah.
So there was also a News Sentinel in the back in the day. So
Yeah.
those district managers obviously had different hours, mostly in the afternoon. So
Okay.
it's a big difference between the morning and the afternoon.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So then you go to KPC, and
Right.
what are you doing there?
So I was hired as outside sales rep.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then do you go to Kiefer from there, or is there a stop in between?
I went to Kiefer from there. I was with the KPC for six and a half. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
And what was it that drew you to Kiefer? How did that transition occur?
Well, they came to me. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, through social media, and I'm not sure if you're aware of what I did when I was at KPC, but
Okay.
I thought of this idea of helping my clients help me. So after a sale or a contract that I signed, I actually had their picture taken with me,
Uh-huh.
and we shook hands.
Yeah.
And basically, I thanked them on my personal Facebook page.
Yeah.
So compared to business page or a company's Facebook page, so I just thought that would be nice for everybody. So actually, is promoting myself and my company, or the company I work for, KPC, and promoting the business.
Yeah.
So I believe my first picture might have been with Preferred Auto, where I actually took a picture in the convertible. But from then, I got more serious, I should say, instead of sitting in a convertible or having my nails done at the spa.
Sure.
So Patrick Kiefer, my current boss and vice president of Kiefer Printing, he actually worked for me at Pine Valley
Oh, really?
as a cart jockey.
Okay. All right.
Well, I was assistant pro, and he is actually doing the jobs in the back with the range and the carts and cleaning the carts and stuff like that. So we've known each other all these years, and he followed me on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
So he noticed what I was doing, thanking all the clients.
Yeah.
So after a couple of interviews, he's like, "Mark, I haven't been stalking you, but I've noticed you have a lot of connections in Fort Wayne." So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I got into Kiefer.
All right. So tell us a little bit about Kiefer Printing. How do you
Sure.
describe the organization?
Well, it's family owned since 1914, 5 generations. The original plant was downtown here off Broadway, I believe. It's an old A1 Mark's Appliance store now.
Okay.
And it's probably the most organized company I've worked with for. Rick Kiefer is the current president. I'm not going to disclose his age, but
Yeah.
but he is he would always pick up, if you see a piece of paper on the floor, he's always going to be meticulous he takes pride in the work and his business and
Sure.
what we put out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So about how many employees, how many people work at Kiefer?
We have 28.
28.
Right.
Okay. And are you, how big is the sales team?
I am the sales team.
Okay. All right. So what's that like? How do you?
Well, Patrick used to be the sales
Well, he hired
sales
someone.
team
Yes,
salesperson.
Yeah. And then he was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right,
I'll hire
right.
someone. Yeah.
So he went. I think they went for 2 or 3 years until they hired myself.
Okay.
And prior to hiring me, we didn't have a digital press.
Okay.
So we always had to farm out smaller jobs like business cards, flyers, or brochures. So maybe a year before they hired me, they brought in a digital Indigo press.
Okay.
Where it's obviously we have no minimum orders. Where a lot of people think, well, I have to order 1,000 cards or 500 cards. Where we can print 50 cards, we can print 10 cards. There's no minimum order on any orders that you place.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's a big change because my perception for a long time was, well, the more you print, the better off you are because once the printing press gets running, that's where the real cost is. And it sounds like in that world, things are a little different.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the way the work gets done, we live in an environment where people want everything right now. How do you accommodate that from a sales perspective? Because you want to accommodate people's needs, but sometimes people ask for things that are borderline impossible. So how do you manage expectations in that environment?
I just try to stay patient, and after I meet the client and discuss what they need, what they're looking for, and how we can help them. For the larger jobs, we ask for 4 to 5 days for production after the proof is approved. Where the digital job, depending on the quantity, we can knock it out in 1 or 2 days.
Okay.
Right. I'm not sure if you're aware, but my claim to fame is we printed everything for the U.S. Open 2019.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. How did that come your way? Was it through a previous relationship when you were a golf pro?
Actually, I went to the golf show in Fort Wayne. They used to have it at the Coliseum. It was through the Journal-Gazette, Fort Wayne newspapers, and at that year they held it at the Parkview Ice Center.
Oh yeah,
over by Glenbrook.
Yeah.
Okay. So since I know a lot of golf pros in town, I just went over there to talk to them and look around and shop for myself, and also promote Kiefer Printing. And there was a representative there from Alabama, and she was promoting the U.S. Open that year. And this was in February.
Okay.
So it's dead winter. It's 15 degrees out. So it's hard to think about golf, but even though it's only a month away.
Especially if you're from Alabama.
Right.
Yeah.
So she had all the previous tickets on the table, all the brochures of what they did in the past. So I started talking to her and basically gave her my sales spiel.
Yeah.
And told her what I do and where I work. And she said, well, the tournament's in June. We don't have anyone lined up right now. So obviously I'm calling her office 20 times on the next Monday.
Yeah.
So we met for a month or two, went back and forth with proposals, and we end up getting the contract for the whole tournament.
Wow. So how big of a job is that? I mean, obviously you can't disclose numbers, but
right.
What did
we
it
had
involve?
a lot of conferences with their team and our team, and over the first meeting, we were unaware of what they needed through the weekend. So the first round is on a Thursday, like any other golf tournament, and it ends on Sunday. So their marketing rep asked us if we're okay waiting on the players to finish their rounds every night, Thursday through Saturday. Then they have to repair the players according to what they shoot.
Okay.
And then obviously the leaders go off last. So he mentioned, well, we won't have the files to your team until 8 o'clock on the previous night. And in return, can you print 14,000 brochures and have them here by 5 in the morning.
Wow.
And my whole team, our jaws dropped.
Yeah.
But
wow. So are you doing this you're doing this on site, obviously, because of the turnaround time. So
correct.
How did you do that? Did you have to bring an operation there? Did you borrow someone else's equipment?
We had all the equipment in-house. The larger jobs, obviously, we did on our larger press, Komori, the 6-color press, where the brochures and daily round player pairings and brochures that they needed for the daily rounds were 14,000 per night.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you did them here in Fort Wayne,
right?
And so then how'd you get them to this?
So the tournament was in South Bend.
Oh, it was in South Bend.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we are right under the radius of 2 hours.
Okay.
So that's
all right.
The radius was 2 hours for a printing company.
Got it.
That's what they're looking for.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you're talking to someone who is borderline illiterate when it comes to golf, so I thought these were going to Georgia or Alabama or something. Okay.
Luckily, it was in South Bend.
All right.
I have been pursuing every tournament since then, even if it's in Florida.
Yeah, for sure.
So they would send us the files once they repaired the players and the times the players are teeing off, like Bernard Langer and all these big shots. It's pretty neat. We got the files at 9 o'clock, maybe a little later some nights. And our graphic team was working from home. So he would redesign the brochure and email it to our digital press, so on site at Kiefer. So we met as a team and just decided who's going to drive there at 3 in the morning to deliver everything.
And did they say, well, you sold it, so you're driving there at 3 in the morning?
I was lucky. I only had to go once. But it was a great team effort. It was a great experience. The security was, you wouldn't believe it was like breaking into, I've never done this, but trying to break in the White House now.
Jeez.
Yeah, but
wow.
I was there weeks before. Obviously, you can drive up right to the clubhouse, but obviously the week of the tournament is all gated off and security. So when we made the morning delivery, we had to get through security every time.
Wow.
Yeah. So those 3 nights we had, I think, 14,000 brochures that we had to get ready.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
A lot of pizza parties.
Yeah. Well, that's impressive. That's a great story.
Yeah.
So anything else close to that you've done? What are some of the other projects you've worked on that, kind of tested the boundaries of what's possible?
Well, currently we are working with a company that we had to send proofs to the UK.
Okay.
So that's the longest shipping we've done so far.
Yeah.
And that's the company makes aprons for Gordon Ramsay.
Okay. All right. Huh. Interesting.
Yes, chef.
Yeah. So Mark, it sounds like, one of the things that, with our focus on this podcast in marketing is we talk a lot about how the digital world is changing things. And we know there's been an impact on print media in a number of different ways, but how has it affected your business? Because you've been doing this in different iterations through print media. What have you seen as digital has evolved? How has that changed the business you're in today?
Mostly we can, like we mentioned earlier, we can print. There's no minimums. Where in the past, we had to farm everything out.
Yeah.
So... And our indigo press matches the color 95% to our 6-color Komori press.
Okay.
So it's very similar on matching colors.
Yeah.
And we can, like I said, brochures, business cards, flyers, postcards. We're getting into the holiday season, so Christmas cards and envelopes, where personal and business.
Yeah.
A lot of we get a lot of, obviously, family cards in the mail, so I'm asking my family, And my wife's family, where'd you get this? Where'd you print this?
Sure.
We could have done it for you.
Sure. So we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but people's expectations today, what I find is that for better and for worse, if you do something that pushes the envelope in terms of delivery, somebody calls you and says, "Hey, we have a need. We know we're asking for a lot, but we need it in a couple days.
Right.
Can you do it?" We here, and I'm sure you're the same way, we try to say yes whenever we can, but sometimes you say yes, and then the expectation is it's always going to take 2 days when
Correct.
normally it would
Right.
take. How do you deal with that? Because the printing business, you have a tangible product that, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It has to go
Right.
through a process. How do you deal with the demands in a really fast-paced world?
Well, I meet with my production manager and plant manager, and also Patrick. We discuss a lot of jobs, and depending on what's on the docket that day,
Yeah.
we can try to get it out earlier if need be. But usually, as I mentioned, the larger jobs take 4 or 5 business days. That's what we ask for from the client.
Sure.
But obviously, if we have open space, we can knock it out. If they need it right away, we can usually make room for it. Like during the pandemic, we did a lot of wipeable menus.
Mm-hmm.
So that was huge. We ran a special online, and restaurants just threw them out after every use.
Yeah.
So
good for the printing business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of when the pandemic hit, I met with Patrick and I said we need to do something for the restaurants and bars. They're the ones that are hurting. Mm-hmm. So we came up with this idea of basically a business card with they can put any offer on it, where they would give it to the clients as they're picking up their food for carry out, since most of the lobbies were closed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them put like 10% off your next order, 20% off, whatever. They didn't want to discount it too
Sure.
large, but just to keep the clients coming back. So that was that's one of our promotional offers, and that led into floor signage, decals, where we were able to do all those jobs on our digital press.
Yeah.
The Coliseum had to close every 5th seat.
Okay.
So they had to label,
Yeah.
everything. And then there's a lot of labels that are still remaining on the floor, or they obviously updated since a year ago or whenever that was. But it was scary. And
So how are you selling during that time? Because it's obviously a relationship business.
Right.
And we've had some other sales professionals on the show, and their approach varied. But how did you continue to stay in front of people at a time when you couldn't be in front of people?
I was on the email more than in person, email and phone calls, and just kept talking to them through email or on the phone, and stayed in touch. A lot of companies kind of obviously quit buying for a while.
Yeah.
Because they weren't sure of the future.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And still aren't.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. So I was actually at home for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Or not going out, 2 to 3 weeks at least.
That's not too bad.
No.
In comparison to how it affected a lot of people.
Right.
So that's pretty quick to get back to work. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's turn, Mark, to the speed round of the show. And I'm going to cover a few things we've already covered, but this is where we kind of synthesize it. So you've had an interesting career. I don't think I've talked to anyone else who made golf a career for part of their life, but you did that. And then you made a pivot into sales, and you've obviously had some success there. As your sons are getting to an age where they're starting their careers, or others you might have a chance to talk to, what is your advice that you give people in terms of career success? What do you think matters most?
Number one is be nice to people. Treat them like you would treat your family, or always in the golf business. Several bosses told me, you never know who's going to walk through the door. Mm-hmm. It could be the president of a company. Mm-hmm. It could be the vice president of a company. It could be, you don't know. until they walk through the door. Presentation is number one. In the golf business, I just remember they're going to remember you and how they were treated.
Yep.
How your business or your golf course looked. That's right now. I believe we're probably the cleanest printer in Fort Wayne.
All right.
And we invite everyone. Anyone can come over for a tour. We welcome tours.
Yeah.
It's 43,000 square footage. Doesn't look that large from the front.
Where is Kiefer Printing located? I think I know this, but
it's over
not...
off Huguenard.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 4,300 square feet.
43,000.
43,000.
So,
That makes more sense. No, I think that was me. Yeah.
All right.
43,000. That
Right.
makes a lot more
Right.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, anyone's welcome to come over for a tour, and it's just unbelievable once you see it. You won't believe until you see it.
So what else differentiates Kiefer Printing? And I'm kind of morphing into the second question here, but what are some of the things that make your business stand out? Why do you think someone should work with you as opposed to another option?
Very particular on our product, what we print, what we put out, how we treat the clients, and the end result. We believe probably the best printer in Fort Wayne of all the experience we've had. When I interviewed with the company, they took me back to the press to meet the pressman, and it was very impressive because I would ask, "How long have you been here?" The minimum years were 25.
Oh wow!
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And since I've been there, 3 have retired after being there 30 plus years.
Oh wow!
Right.
Yeah.
So he treats us like family.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Right.
Well, last quick question. You mentioned some of the changes that were visited upon you and the business during the pandemic, and obviously who knows where we go from here. But I think most of us learned something during that time, during quarantine, and as the pandemic has unfolded. What's something you learned that maybe you didn't know before or maybe wasn't as obvious to you, something you learned over the past 18 months or so that you think will stick with you for the rest of your career, kind of the lesson out of all we've been through?
For myself,
Yeah.
just to be nice, treat people as you want to be treated. In sales, I've been very persistent. So I'm known to talk to you until you tell me no.
Yeah.
Where I've worked with a lot of sales reps who I believe aren't that serious about it, or just a few examples, like if it says no soliciting, I still go in.
Okay. All right.
Just a heads up.
Yeah.
Where a former worker said, I just sat in my car. I just turned around. But
So what happens if somebody said, okay, so let's role play here for a
Okay.
second. You're walking into a business, you see a no soliciting sign.
it's more in the strip mall or somewhere.
All right.
But
So you see a no soliciting sign, and somebody says, does anybody ever say to you, didn't you see the sign?
not as much as they do now when it says, please wear a mask.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So,
all right.
yeah. But you don't know who you're going to meet until you cold call, or
Yeah.
until you knock on this door, or get yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So how do you balance that with being nice? You want to be.
I try not to get upset, but every morning it's like, you got to do this. You got to do this.
Yeah. So
this
what
is
drives that? It's a tough business. I mean, how do you stay motivated?
I've always had a goal for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Right. Where in my mind, I want to hit a certain number every month.
Okay.
So personal goal. So that's what I set out to do every month. Where in the past, you can't really give up. Especially in sales. Just try to get out there and be competitive. Kind of like sports. Like, I know you run a lot. How many half marathons have you done?
Well,
13?
More than I can count, but some of that is me just getting old.
Right.
Yeah.
it's kind of like you set your goals for yourself and try to achieve them. I try to run 2 half marathons a year.
Yep.
And the last couple of years I have succeeded in that, and also biking, and my golf game's a little scratchy right now, but there's other.
Well, you've got some months to
Right.
to relax on that.
So I just try to. I've always been very positive and try to do the best I can.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's, pretty well self-motivated, which is a great thing, because it's hard to set a goal if it's imposed by someone else, but if you set it for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's been very blessed so far. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks for joining us on the show.
You.
And if you have a no soliciting sign on your business, Mark's just going to come right on in. So be ready for that.
Might be a quick visit, but I'll be there.
Well, thanks again, Mark, and thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.